Okay, so let's, for just a minute, look forward. And in the next American mission to Mars is going to be in, the next Rover mission to Mars from the United States is going to be in 2020. And right now it has the glorious name of the 2020 Rover. So I'm sure they will come up with a better name with time. But this is just a sketch of the rover, and if you were paying attention to the drawings of Curiosity, it's essentially a twin of Curiosity for the basic rover itself. The instruments will be quite different. It's really going to be designed to look for biosignatures, signatures of bacteria or life in the past. So it's got a drill, all sorts of spectral instruments, mass spectrometers, things like that. And it's also going to cache samples. It'll pick up particularly promising samples, put them in little containers, and store that under the assumption that at some point, a decade from now perhaps, another spacecraft will land nearby, pick up those samples, and return them to the Earth. So it's going to be a very interesting mission. But what happened in the last week is NASA had a meeting of Mars scientists. This has been going on for quite a while, and they've narrowed down the target landing site to 3 instead of about 400. And so this is a map of where these 3 landing sites are. Syrtis Major, Jezero Crater, and Jezero Crater. And for those of you that are a little bit familiar with Mars history, Gusev is where the Spirit rover landed. And so there's actually some support for going back to someplace we've already been, which is a little surprising, but I guess it also makes sense that if you know what the surface conditions were like in a particular area, then if that matches what your mission is, then let's go back. So just a quick look at these 3 sites. This is the Syrtis Major area. It's lots of volcanic structures, and this feature viewed from orbit is thought to be an area with lots of hot springs. And that's the type of area that we expect would be very conducive to life being able to be sustained if indeed it exists at all on Mars. So that's the reason why we're going there. This is the Jezero Crater, and it's got lots of evidence for water having flowed into the crater. This is a delta left behind by this flowing water. And the thinking is that if indeed there was life here, it would be washed downstream and possibly concentrated in one of these delta features. Yeah, and then finally, this is a view from the Spirit rover taken in about 2005. And this is in the Columbia Hills, which is a set of seven hills that were near the landing site. And once they drove to them and examined the materials, they found evidence for hot springs, things like what we would see in Yellowstone Park, mud pots and geysers, things like that. And so again, that's the type of material that you would expect would be conducive to sustaining bacteria at the very least. And one of the other aspects that could happen if the 2020 rover here landed in this area, the Spirit rover is still sitting on the surface. It failed in 2006. And they could drive up to Spirit, do some close-up observations, and just do engineering studies of how well this hardware has survived 20 or 30 years on, well, by then, I guess it'd be 20 years if they land in 2021. So that's a sort of a bonus feature for this area.